A very important development on bioterrorism to tell you about. Researchers in Wisconsin and the Netherlands, working separately, have created a form of the deadly bird flu virus that can easily spread from person to person. There is growing concern that if terrorists got their hands on this information, they could create a virus that could kill millions of people around the world. The bird flu virus, known as H5N1, is fatal in 60% of human cases. Since it was first detected back in 1997, about 600 people have been sickened by it. Of those, only 336 have died, mainly because it cannot yet be transmitted between humans. In response to the new research, the government's National Science Advisory Board for Biosecurity, for the very first time, has asked the journals Science and Nature to withhold certain details of the new research from reports they intend to publish. Joining us to talk much more about this is Dr. Michael Osterholm. He's the director of the Center for Infectious Disease Research and Policy at the University of Minnesota School of Public Health. He's also a member of the National Science Advisory Board. Dr. Osterholm, nice to have you on the program.
Thank you very much. Good to talk to you again.
Thank you. You as well. What do you know about this new research? I mean, how significant of a discovery do you think this is?
Well, first of all, let me just add one disclaimer. As a member of the board, I can't get into the confidential nature of the work, but there's a fair amount of information that's in the public domain that I can talk about. Basically, the efforts were really to see if the H5N1 or bird flu viruses, which to date have not transmitted readily from person to person, as you noted, could actually go through a series of genetic changes that would actually make them capable of doing that and really becoming the next pandemic influenza strain. And what the authors were able to do in the two papers that are now being considered did demonstrate changes that could very well mean that the virus could become readily transmitted between humans.
So what do you say to critics who are saying that this is, in a sense, censorship, telling these journals that you can't publish this information, these findings?
Well, first of all, we all agree that kind of the ultimate original sin of scientific research is censorship. But we also understand that there is a way to move very critical information to those in the scientific world that have a need to know without informing the entire world. And what I mean by the entire world, particularly those individuals who may, for nefarious reasons, want to try to duplicate this work and that virus somehow get into the population. And I would really be mindful here that it's not just terrorists we think of. Even someone working with the virus in a laboratory where they are not sufficiently careful to keep it from escaping could very well be the reason why this could start another worldwide pandemic. So the efforts we really have undertaken is to try to find that right middle point. How do we make sure that the right information is moved to the people of the need to know, but that it's not in the hands of those who could use it for unfortunate purposes?
How easily do you think this could get into the hands of terrorists or anyone who might want to do any harm with it?
Well, in the scientific world, openness is what we're all about. That's, in fact, how science moves forward, is to make sure that others can see what we did, how we did it, and have others duplicate it. And so, on the other hand, remember, physicists have been working with classified or secure data since the 1930s and 40s. We know that there have been other efforts in the life sciences, meaning biology, where we've worked with agents of bioterrorism that were done under research classifications of what's called classified. So it's not that this hasn't happened before. What we have to do now is realize that we've suddenly really leapfrogged over an infectious agent that we worried about but never thought it being a potential agent of intent to harm, and now being that. And so we're all working on how to try to find the best means to support this work, to make sure that it's done right, that it's done safely, and that those who have a need to know, and those who don't won't get it into their hands. And I think that can be done.
So given the sticky situation that you seem to be in right now, I mean, do you have any thought that maybe this research shouldn't have been done in the first place? Any regrets?
Well, first of all, I think this research is very important for several reasons. One is that until now, there were a lot of people who doubted that H5N1, or the bird flu virus, would ever become a pandemic influenza strain, meaning that circulates around the world among a largely unprotected population and causing great damage. Now we have no doubt the changes that we know about that have allowed this virus to become more readily transmitted among ferrets, an animal model that really approximates what happens in humans, should be a clarion wake-up call to the entire world that tomorrow this particular flu virus could become the next pandemic. pandemic and dwarf anything that we've seen in modern history. Second of all is it now does give us more information about how we might anticipate when another flu virus is moving towards becoming a pandemic strain. Are there markers in those viruses when we see them in animals like birds that should give us warning that maybe something's about ready to happen?
Yeah. Scientists have unlocked the recipe for bird flu that spreads like wildfire, and they're being asked to keep quiet about it in the name of global security. Here to talk about that, Dr. Nathan Wolfe, founder and CEO of the Global Viral Forecasting Initiative. He's also author of The Viral Storm, The Dawn of a New Pandemic Age, and CNN national security contributor Fran Townsend, former Homeland Security advisor in the Bush administration. Nathan, you and I have talked about this, traveled around the world talking about this for some time. It's pretty frightening to read about. We're talking about a virus that could kill a lot of people and also spread easily. How dangerous is this H5N1 virus?
From my perspective, one of the most interesting elements of this research, and of course we're all waiting to see the results in the papers, is we didn't previously know that H5N1 had the potential to be transmissible in mammals. Now what we know from this research is that it can be transmitted in at least one mammal. Now let's remember that it is ferrets, and ferrets generally are a very good model for understanding both disease and transmission in humans. But this doesn't necessarily tell us exactly how effective this virus would be at transmitting in humans.
You know, people are putting this in a national security sense as well, Fran. I mean, and this is one of those things where you think about viruses and national security, it doesn't come up that often. I mean, what is your assessment of what this advisory panel is claiming? I mean, do you think this could be a national security threat?
I absolutely think it could be a national security threat, Sanjay. Let's remember, recently Secretary of State Clinton was over in Geneva at the World Health Organization and talked about in her remarks the ease with which, because of public information now, that someone with some science background can take public information, get basic genetic material, and make a bioweapon. And so this really is a threat. Now, we have to balance that, of course, against the need for academic and scientific freedoms. But I think there are ways of doing that. This was a concern going back to the Bush administration, and I can remember talking with Dr. Tony Fauci of NIH about the security concern and getting his advice about balancing.
Just when we'd almost forgotten about it, the threat of bird flu is back. The United Nations has just issued a warning about the resurgence of the virus. It says a mutant strain of bird flu is spreading throughout Asia. Australian authorities say we are prepared if and when it reaches here.
Bird flu was at its peak in 2006, infecting millions of birds and almost 600 people, half of whom died. Since then it's remained dormant, but the United Nations is warning that a new mutant strain has developed.
Avian influenza or bird flu is still quite serious when it infects man, especially the highly pathogenic viruses such as the H5N1.
Wild bird migrations have brought bird flu back to countries that were previously virus-free. So far, bird flu has shown up in Bangladesh, China, Egypt, India, Indonesia and Vietnam. Health experts say the appearance of a mutant strain is concerning because it appears to be able to sidestep the available vaccines.
In humans, without early treatment, more than 50% die, but there is good evidence that if we get high levels of treatment in within a couple of days of falling ill, you can reduce the mortality down to perhaps 20%.
The latest death from bird flu was in Cambodia, where 8 people have already died this year. Australian health authorities say the federal government has been preparing for a possible outbreak of bird flu since 2004.
Our laboratories are ready to diagnose the virus if it's to come to us. We've got preparation ready to develop a vaccine quickly, and we've got a good supply of antiviral medication.
And while the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade isn't advising people to defer their travel to affected countries, it's recommending they avoid farms and markets containing birds. Sophie Scott, ABC News.
Nobody was supposed to figure out all of this. Remember what that paper says on the elitists, their paper, when it says our goal will be accomplished one drop at a time so as to never bring suspicion upon ourselves. This will also prevent them from seeing the changes as they occur. We will always stand above the relative field of their experience, for we know the secrets of the absolute. We will work together always and will remain bound by blood and secrecy. Death will come to he who speaks. We will keep their lifespan short and their minds weak while pretending to do the opposite. We will use our knowledge of science and technology in subtle ways so they will never see what is happening. We will use soft metals, aging accelerators, and sedatives in food and water, also in the air. They will be blanketed by poisons everywhere they turn. The soft metals will cause them to lose their minds. We will promise to find a cure from our many fronts, yet we will feed them more poison. The poison will be absorbed through their skin and mouths. They will destroy their minds and reproductive systems. From all this, the children will be born dead, and we will conceal this information. The poisons will be hidden in everything that surrounds them, in what they drink, eat, breathe, and wear. We must be ingenious in dispensing the poisons, for they can see far. We will teach them that the poisons are good, with fun images and musical tones. Those they look up to will help. We will enlist them to push our poisons. We will see our products being used in film, and will grow accustomed to them and will never know their true effect. When they give birth, we will inject poisons into the blood of their children and convince them it's for their help. We will start early on. When their minds are young, we will target their children with what children love most, sweet things. When their teeth decay, we will fill them with metals that will kill their mind and steal their future. When their ability to learn has been affected, we will create medicine that will make them sicker and cause other diseases, for which we will create yet more medicine. We will render them docile and weak before us by our power. They will grow depressed, slow, and obese. When they come to us for help, we'll give them more poison. We will focus their attention toward money and material goods, so they may never connect with their inner self. We will distract them with fornication, external pleasures, and games, so they may never be one with their oneness of it all.
That sounds like Rumsfeld with the swine flu.
Their minds will belong to us, and they will do as we say. If they refuse, we shall find ways to implement mind-altering technology into their lives. We will use fear as our weapon. We will establish their governments and
trust. Do you trust the government?
You know, they're schemers. Schemers trying to control their little worlds.
The economy's on the verge of collapse. You guys are fucked. You're going to a FEMA camp. We're going to experience a hyperinflationary depression the likes of the world has never seen. Millions of people are going to starve. You're going to die in a FEMA camp. Millions are going to fucking starve to death, and you're going to be one of them. This is a sinking ship, folks. What you going to do when you can't buy food? We're all going to die!
Fuck you! Yeah, that's my message to you. Fuck you and kiss my ass.